Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So, yes, we had completed first revisionary class, wherein we had discussed about the basics of taxation, basics of GST, and very important portion on the constitutional provisions under the uh, Constitution of India, which got amended, because of which GST is existing now. So we had gone through the complete those articles which were relevant and which was the basis for bringing the GST. And today we will move forward and discuss on the main aspect, which is the supply aspect under GST. Okay. For the participants who have joined in late, good afternoon, everyone. And so today's session will be an important session, okay, because we are reading the main concept of the complete GST, which is supply, and it is a lengthier chapter. So how we will do is your questions, what we will do is the session will be lengthier. So only during the break time, just before going to the break, we will take up the questions, and at the end, we will take up the questions, because lot of things needs to be understood under supply. So if there is any question before taking supply, I could address them, and during the break and at the end. So we'll have 3 question answer sessions. Since you have understood and read the GST session on, you have gone through the session on supply. Is there any questions which you have, which you want to clarify, so that we could clarify those questions and then get into the revision? If there's no question, then we can start with complete revision. But in case you have any questions which you are facing, because supply is one thing which you would have learned and read multiple times, right? I will take you to the intricacies, which are the things which you have to see. But before that, if you have any queries in supply. Okay, just wait for one more minute. Yes, somebody is trying to ask a query. Okay. If there are no queries, let's get into the topic. And then probably when we discuss, during the course of discussion, you will have some queries, because when we read through the subject, we get a lot of questions. So we will get into the chapter, we'll understand supply, we'll understand everything. So basically, what are we trying to cover? We are trying to cover today what is taxable event. Okay, we'll see this. Taxable event under GST. What is the scope of supply? The supply, what we are stating, what is covered under that? What are these 3 schedules? Are these schedules part of the act or outside the act? Is it possible for you to leave away the schedule and read only the act? We will understand that. Then we will understand what is a composite supply, how is it taxed, and what is a mixed supply, how is it taxed. Okay, this is a broad spectrum what we'll cover. So how to write answer if question asks define import of services under section 1B and schedule 1. So when a question is asked on define import of services, you will have to mention the section 7(1)(b) and reference to schedule 1. Okay, but you don't have to reproduce schedule 1, because schedule 1 is only a reference. When they ask you a question on definition of import of services, they wouldn't ask import of services. There'll be a question of taxability of import of services. Then you will have to mention 7(1)(b) and give a reference that schedule 1 is also part of it. But you don't have to actually mention schedule 1 now, because schedule 1 is not restricted to import. Schedule 1, Priyanka, is on all those transactions where the supplier supplies something and there is no consideration, then Schedule 1 comes in. Okay, but not for import of services. Import of services currently comes only in one part of Schedule 1, which is when you have any import from a related party outside India to India. If you're importing something from associate enterprises, then it will be one line which will be relevant for you. Okay, so we'll get into that slide. There is a specific slide which I have on import of services when it is 7.1b, Schedule 1 and 7.1a also. Okay, so we'll cover all of those things. Okay, so this is our broad spectrum what we'll cover. We will cover supply, schedule, and composite and mixed supply. Now, what is a taxable event in any transaction? We know that in any transaction, there has to be a taxable event to trigger the tax. Now, that taxable event, what was there under pre-GST was a point of manufacture for the purpose of excise. When you manufacture something, then excise duty was levied. For customs duty, it was when you import something. The taxable event was import and export of goods. For service tax, it was rendering of service. And for VAT, it was taxable event was transfer of supply, ownership of the goods. When the title of the goods or the ownership of the goods was transferred, that is when the taxable event was triggered under the state tax, state VAT laws or the state sales tax laws when you make any sale. So these were the specific events or pointers which triggered the respective tax laws. So those were having a different points. Like if you manufacture, you will not pay VAT, but when you manufacture, you will pay excise duty. Now, when that manufactured goods, same goods are getting sold, when the title is getting transferred, then you would have charged VAT, correct? So on a same product at multiple stages, different taxes was levied. So under earlier law, there were multiple facets where there were multiple points when tax used to be levied. Service tax, you never used to transfer any title in goods because it's a service, right? So there is no question of transfer of title. In case of service tax, it is a taxable event of rendering of service. Seeing that there are multiple pointers under the earlier law, the government now decided that we will have one point. We will have only one point under the GST, which is called as supply. So we will bring one point and tax it, which is called as supply. So if you see in GST, the GST tax structure, the taxable event is on supply. And supply is so broadly defined that it includes everything. Okay. So it includes everything in the sense that earlier we had saying that when a goods is manufactured and sold, then excise duty on manufacture and VAT on sale is involved. Correct? Now in GST, it is not a tax on manufacture because whatever goods are manufactured will be supply. So there is one event called supply. When this manufactured goods is supplied, then the taxable event gets triggered. So the entire value of supply of goods is charged in an integrated manner. Earlier, it was not integrated. There were different taxable events. Now it is getting integrated to one taxable event. Okay. And that taxable event is getting taxed under GST. Now we will understand what is supply. Very important to understand here is we know the definition of supply, yes, but there is some amendments which is relevant for our exam, which was, this is the first time when that amendment is relevant. We have to pay special attention to that. Now, what does supply include? Supply includes the definition as it is there under the law. I'm reproducing it. Supply includes all forms of supply of goods or services or both, such as sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease or disposal, made or agreed to be made for a consideration by a person in the course or furtherance of business. So what does it say? Supply includes all forms of supply. It includes all forms of supply. It is an inclusive definition, which means that there are two types of definition. One is exhaustive definition and another one is inclusive definition. Exhaustive definition would start with wordings like supply means, which means whatever is stated, only that is covered. It is exhaustive. Only what is stated is supply. But when it is inclusive, when it says supply includes, which means apart from what we have, the general understanding of supply, apart from that, this specific things are also included. So supply includes all forms of supply of goods or services, such as, so it could be supply of goods or services or both. When could it be both? We know that when we have composite supply, it could be supply of goods or services or both. Such as, so they're giving an illustration of what all can be supply. They're saying it could be sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease, and disposal. So 8 forms of supply is mentioned. What are these 8 forms? We will read it in detail. Now, made or agreed to be made for a consideration. So for normal supply, there has to be a consideration. It should be by a person and it should be in the course or furtherance of his business. Now, the definition of supply says under 7(1)(a), it should be for a consideration and it should be in the course or furtherance of business. Those are the 2 important limbs. Then 7(1)(a), which is the amendment which I was saying, which is brought in under the law relevant first time for your exams. 7(1)(a) says that the activities or transactions by a person other than an individual to its members or constituents or vice versa for cash, deferred payment or other valuable consideration, where any activity or transaction is done by a association, okay, which by a person other than individual, which means what? It could cover associations, it could include clubs, it could include any welfare associations, all of that which is providing a service to its members. So any organization which is formed by its members and that organization is providing any supply to its members will be a supply. Now, what is this trying to say is this is an amendment. So that's why you see A के बाद B, B के बीच में double A आ गया, which means it is inserted. It is inserted by a amendment in the act, but it has an effect from the date when GST came in. So 1st July 2017 से ही इसका effect है. This amendment has happened because there was a famous case under the service tax law called as Calcutta Club case, wherein the Supreme Court held that in case of any supply by a association to its members is under the concept of mutuality. That is, the members form together and come together and form association, and that association is same as its member. It is not different. Okay, so the concept under service tax, what was decided by the Supreme Court is there is a concept of mutuality wherein the association is formed by the members, and if association provides any services to its members, that will not be treated as a service provided by the association to its members because it is one and the same. So there is no taxability of any kind of service which the association provides to its members. That is what was decided under service tax. But that same analogy, the same logic should not apply under GST, because if they apply under GST, then the government will lose its revenue. That's the reason they have brought in a change in the law saying that any activities provided by a person other than individual to its members will be a supply. So they've said that when we have defined supply, then you cannot go outside it. Whatever is said under that law will not apply to GST because we are changing the law itself. Got it? So since they are changing the law, they are trying to bring in the any kind of club services by any club to its members, any kind of welfare association by a residential welfare association to its members. All of that will be covered under supply. Okay. Then import of services for a consideration, whether or not in the course or furtherance of business, any kind of import of services, what we are doing on which we are paying any consideration to the foreign supplier. It is an import of service. Now, if you are doing any import of services for personal use, what will you do? Import of service for personal use, you will download some music and you are not using it for your business, you are using it for your personal leisure. Now, if this music providing company is outside India and you are receiver in India, this transaction, even though it is not in the course of furtherance of business, it is still liable to GST. Now, who will pay the GST? That will come to know later on. But understand that at this stage, jab supply we are defining, supply level may any kind of import of services will be liable to GST because it is covered under the scope of supply. Then 7(1)(c) says the activities specified in Schedule 1, which is made or agreed to be made without a consideration, is also supply. Arey baap re, it's really confusing, right? 7(1)(a) says that there has to be two legs. One is it should be for a consideration and it should be in the course of furtherance of business. Then some exceptions are coming in. 7(1)(b) says when you're importing any services, mind you, it's only import of services because when you import goods, it is already covered under GST through the integrated goods and service tax. So when you import any goods, you will pay customs duty and GST that is already defined. But when you import services, there is no customs clearance. So how you're not paying any customs duty. So how do you track that? That's the reason 7(1)(b) says when you import any services, whether or not in the course of furtherance of business, but if it is for a consideration, that is also liable to GST. Then the activities specified in Schedule 1. Now we said consideration was required. Here we are saying without consideration also GST will be payable if those activities are mentioned under Schedule 1. Okay. Then 7(1)(a) says that where certain activities or transactions constitute a supply in accordance with provisions of Section 1, they shall be treated either as supply of goods or supply of services as referred to in Schedule 2. So once you are confirming that it is an activity, any kind of sale, what you're doing, it is activity for any activity constitute a supply, it is a supply in accordance with Section 1. Now to classify whether it is goods or services, you have to come to Schedule 2. So Schedule 2 will basically tell that if you are confirming that it's a supply, then come to Schedule 2. Schedule 2 will dictate you whether it is supply of goods or supply of services. Got it? This is 7(1)(a). Then 7 subsection 2. Section 7 subsection 2 says that notwithstanding whatever is said in 1, forget whatever I've said in 1, Baba. Notwithstanding anything, which means it's a non-obstant clause. Non-obstant clause का मतलब क्या होता है कि it is not relying or connecting the other sections. Leave away section 1, then read this. Notwithstanding anything contained in subsection, matlab, whatever principles we have stated in 1, that will not apply to subsection 2. Notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 1, activities or transactions specified in Schedule 3 or activities or transactions undertaken by the central government, state government, or such other public authorities shall be treated neither as supply of goods nor supply of services. What is the meaning of this? We have told that all transactions of supply of goods and services under 7(1)(a) is taxable. When it is taxable, when it is for a consideration and it is in the course of furtherance of business. Now 7(b), 7(2), subsection 7, subsection 2 says that I will carve out an exception. By carving out of this exception, what I'm trying to say is any of these activities which is there under Schedule 3, or if it is a services provided by the government, it shall be treated neither a supply of goods nor a supply of services. It is neither supply of goods nor supply of services. Then 7(3). 7(3) says, subject to the provisions of 1(1)(a) and 2, the government may, by notification, specify what are the transactions that are to be treated as supply of goods but not supply of services, or supply of services but not supply of goods. Okay, so they will, apart from what classification we have seen in 7(1)(a), there could be some other cases which are under doubtful or which are under litigation. For that, the government has special powers to decide whether it is supply of goods or supply of services. Clear? So any doubts still here? If an individual is registered under GST and the registration permits the input of only 5 HSN codes, in registration permits input for only 5 HSN codes. My query is whether ITC is available across different HSN code. Yes, there is no restriction in terms of HSN codes saying that only 5 HSN codes you can claim. Nothing like that. Whatever is your business, in your business, if you have multiple HSN codes, there are 100 HSN codes which a business may use. All of that is available. There is no kind of linkage which you have to do between the HSN code of purchases and HSN code of sales, not required. Okay. You may have consumed kind of say water for your office use. Now that water you are not supplying because you are consuming it. Still on that you can claim the credit because it is for the purpose of business. So HSN, input HSN should match with output HSN is not a criteria. Hope I'm clear, Ugandar. Member and association both are treated as separate person. Correct. Because of this 7(1)AA addition, member and association both are treated as separate person. Persons means HUF, AOP, BOI, but does not include individuals. Correct. It does not, because the word under 7(1)AA says the activities by a person. By a person means any person. It could be any person other than an individual. So it can include HUF, association of persons, body of individuals, everything. Architect services to construct house in India is an example of import of services. Clause 3, explain again, please. Manish, the group chat is not activated. Whatever is the question, you can post it so I can read it and answer it. Does it should be only for business purpose for claiming ITC? Yes, for claiming ITC, you should be only for business. Now, if you cannot claim ITC if it is for non-business purpose, right? Anybody who will take registration, he will take registration for his business. And if it is for his business, he can claim the input tax credit. So it should be for his business only. He can claim any credit what is being claimed for his business itself. 1 minute. So clear with the concept of supply. Now we'll get into what is we understood the definition. Now we will try to decipher the definition in different terms. First is, what are the parameters of supply? Firstly, 7(1)A says supply should be of goods or services or both. And such supply of goods or services or both should be for a consideration, and it should be in the course or furtherance of business. So 3 important criteria. It should be supply of goods or services, it should be for a consideration, and it should be in the course or furtherance of business. That is 7(1)A. Then 7(1)AA says that any activities by a association to its members is taxable. Then 7B gives an exception. 7(1)B gives an exception saying that for import of services, it is not compulsory that it should be in the course or furtherance of business. If it is in the course of furtherance of business, जैसे मेरा एक software company है, I'm importing software. So a software company is registered in India. It is importing software. It is in the course of furtherance of business, so it will pay GST under reverse charge. Whatever import it is doing on that, it will pay reverse charge of the IGST, right? That is import of services. Now, if that business, say I'm not a businessman, I'm a individual who is not registered under GST. Now I am procuring something for my personal use. Okay, it's like an architect from the foreign country is appointed to do interior designing of my house. Now that is import of services. When he provides me some service, on that also GST will apply, because even if it is not in the course of other business, but there is a consideration, then it is liable to GST. So there is a GST portion on that import of service. Then second exception is 7(1)C, where it says that supply of goods or services where it is in the course of furtherance of business, but without consideration, will also liable to GST. What are those transactions? Those transactions are there, which is covered under 7(1)C, and 7(1)C is covering those items what are there under Schedule 1. So there could be the list which may increase. So that list is not there in the act, but the act gives a reference to the schedule. So schedule also becomes part of the act. So the question first, what we asked was, should we read the schedules or no? Yes, we should read the schedules because schedules are part of the act. Just because in that reference sections, they can't mention it, they mention it in a special schedule. Okay. Then 7(1)(a) we understood, 7(1)(AA), 7(1)(b), 7(1)(c). Now 7(2) says that transactions which are out of the scope of supply is Schedule 3 transactions. Okay. So what are the parameters of supply? Again, in a different manner, supply includes supply of goods or services for a consideration in the course or furtherance of business. Then activities or transactions of a club or association is also supply, which is covered under 7(1)AA. Then importation of services for consideration, even if not in the course or furtherance of business. When you import something, even if it is not in the course of furtherance of business, still it is liable to GST. And then last leg is supply without consideration is covered under 7(1)(c), read along with Schedule 1. So Schedule 1 items are covered under GST even if there is no consideration. What it excludes is non-supplies under GST, which is covered under 7 subsection 2 and mentioned in a schedule, mentioned under Schedule 3. And activities to be treated as goods or services is specified under 7(1) capital A, read along with Schedule 2. What are HSN codes? HSN means that goods, whenever you make any supply, you should have a HSN code, ताकि everybody can understand what you are supplying. Now, whatever color you're supplying, whatever size you're supplying, that is not relevant. What is the description of the product? It is a shirt. It is a pant. So such description, if you give, that description will get linked to a HSN code. What is HSN code? HSN code means harmonized system of nomenclature, wherein all across the globe, for every product, one number is assigned. Okay. Why this is assigned internationally is because when you do any import and export, that same code what you are using should be referred by the importer. That's the reason. When you import anything, okay, when you sell anything, you have to consider the HSN for that. HSN is given in the HSN tariff of the customs. From there, you see what is the HSN for your product and then determine the rate for those goods. Clear? Abhijit, yes, ideally one should not claim ITC for personal use. They will not claim it, but they will be liable to pay GST under reverse charge. So payment under reverse charge will come, but input tax credit cannot be claimed. Clear till this parameters of supply. Now we'll get into the further understanding of supply. But before that, it is important that we understand the important definitions. So the first definition is definition of goods. What is goods? Goods means every kind of movable property. Firstly, we know that if it is immovable, it is not goods. That we have all understood. But what we have not understood is what is goods then? If immovable property is not goods, then what is goods? That's why they have a definition under GST which says that goods means every kind of movable property. Okay, whatever is movable is a goods, because what is not movable is becomes a immovable property. But whatever is movable becomes a goods. Goods includes every kind of movable property. It excludes money and securities, but it includes any actionable claims, growing crops, grass and things attached to or forming part of the land which are agreed to be severed, which means the definition of goods is so very wide that it says that one is bus, it should be a movable property. Fine. Movable property हो गया. money and securities, but money and securities are excluded because in securities, what you do, you only buy and sell shares, debentures, bonds, everything. There is no kind of supply. That's why securities and money is kept out of it. And then what does it include? It includes firstly, actionable claim. And then secondly, growing crops, grass and things attached to or forming part of the land, which are agreed to be severed before supply or under contract of supply. So when you know that, uh, what is a actionable claim first? Actionable claim is a right to claim something. Like you have sundry debtors, you have sold something. Now you have to recover money from them. They are called as sundry debtors, or they can also be called as accounts receivable. The right to claim that money from the accounts receivable or from the debtors is called as actionable claim. You can take action for your claim. That is a actionable claim. Okay. But not everything is actionable claim. You have to be careful. Actionable claim is used as a legal term, but generally we practice, right? So when we have to ask some debtors, we write a letter to him. That is because we have a claim over that debt. So that's why we are writing to him. So it's an actionable claim. Then growing crops, grass and things attached to or forming part of the land. So none land you have 100 mango trees growing. In 1 acre of your land, you have 100 mango trees growing. Now it's growing. In the next season, it will fetch the fruit. So it's a growing crops and it is attached to the land to participate, growing crops, grass and things attached to or farming part of the land, which are agreed to be severed. So when you're selling this land for lease, you're not selling the land, you're only giving the lease, saying that, okay, whatever fruits are coming from this 100 plants, I will make an estimate. On that basis, you pay me consideration. So even though there is a transaction of land, the objective is to sever that fruit from the tree. So you're trying to cut down the mango tree. So once you cut down the mango tree, then you are agreeing that you will not only give it as a lease, but you will sell the fruits what are growing in the tree. So when you're doing that, that is also goods. Very interesting, no? So when you read the contract law with this definition of goods, you'll understand that even under the Immovable Property Act, the growing crops, grass, and things which are forming part of the land is immovable property. Similarly, goods also, when it is growing crops, grass, and things which are part of the land, which is given, which are agreed to be severed before such supply, then it is also covered under the definition of goods. So we are importing service, then also we have to pay GST, but as an individual, we don't have GST registration. Correct. So if you have something importing, right, like the music example which I gave, if you are downloading the music, the government has said that so many people are importing that now we cannot tell everybody to take registration. So instead of receiver paying GST on import of services, we have told the supplier itself was to pay the GST. Okay. That is only in case of such specific service, which is called as online information database access and retrieval services. So when you have this online information database access retrieval services, instead of receiver paying it, the supplier itself will pay it. Okay. But in all other cases, the receiver only have to pay it. That when you're importing something, if you're not registered, you will have to register for the purpose of paying this reverse charge and take registration. Okay. Mobile phone tower before it is getting installed will be goods. Once it is installed, it still becomes mobile just because for its function that it has to be assembled, it is still a goods itself. It's a capital goods. Online gaming is not included as an actionable claim, but by way of amendment, they have included online gaming under actionable claim. But actually speaking, online gaming is not an actionable claim. Okay, so what is included? Movable property and actionable claim and growing crops, and it excludes money and securities. Money and securities is excluded from goods and it is excluded from services. What is services? Very simple. Services means anything other than goods. That is services. It again excludes money and securities, but it includes activities relating to use of money or conversion of money by cash or any other means from one party, from one form, currency, or one denomination to another denomination. So whenever there is a exchange of value, then whenever there is a activity other than goods, it's a service, and it excludes money and securities, but includes use of money or conversion of money by cash or any other mode. If we don't cut the crops from the land, then still it is calculated goods? No. If it is not severed, then it is not goods. Lottery, betting, and gambling is actionable claim. So if you see the schedule 3, all actionable claims are excluded other than lottery, betting, and gambling. Agar lottery, betting, and gambling में if you have won something, then it is treated as supply of goods. Okay, so only under actionable claims, lottery, betting, and gambling are covered. Other than that, all other actionable claims are outside the scope of GST. Why? Because it is there in Schedule 3. So this is the definition of supply of goods and services. Then the 8 forms of supply which we had discussed. It says, what are the 8 forms? First is sale. We'll understand this 8 terms in detail. Agreed to be severed मतलब आपने बेचने पे पहले अग्री कर दिया कि यू आर कैन कट द फ्रूट्स. सो आप इंस्टेड ऑफ गिविंग हिम कटिंग द फ्रूट्स एंड गिविंग इट टू हिम, यू आर सेइंग दैट ये लैंड आप लीज पे ले लो और जो भी यहाँ पे ट्रीज पे फ्रूट्स उगेंगे वो आप कट करके ले सकते हो. तो इसका मतलब क्या हो? आप लैंड तो नहीं बेच रहे हो, आप जो फ्रूट्स है उसको बेच रहे हो. सो इट इज अ ट्रांजैक्शन ऑफ सेल ऑफ गुड्स ऑफ दोज फ्रूट्स, नॉट अ लीज ऑफ लैंड. Got it? So when you agree that you will give this land and whatever is growing in it, you can take it. इसका मतलब it's a transaction of sale of goods, not a lease of land. Because sale of goods में specifically goods के definition में ही specifically ये दिया गया है. Sale is transfer of ownership. 8 forms of supply हमने कहा है. सेल, बार्टर, सेल, ट्रांसफर, बार्टर, एक्सचेंज, लाइसेंस, रेंटल, लीज एंड डिस्पोजल. तो एक एक टर्म समझेंगे. सब सेल क्या है? सेल ये है जो ट्रांसफर ऑफ ओनरशिप है एंड टाइटल ऑफ द प्रॉपर्टी फ्रॉम वन पर्सन टू अनदर पर्सन है, दैट इज सेल. एंड ऑफ कोर्स इट शुड बी फॉर अ प्राइस. सेल ऑफ लैपटॉप्स इज एग्जांपल ऑफ सेल. देन सेकेंड टर्म इज ट्रांसफर. ट्रांसफर का मतलब क्या है? टू कन्वे और रिमूव फ्रॉम वन प्लेस टू अनदर प्लेस. So sale में you are selling it off, but in transfer you are not selling it, but you are transferring. मतलब the goods when they are there with me, I give it to you. It's a sale. Sale will include transfer because I'm transferring the goods to you. लेकिन only transfer, सिर्फ transfer जो है वो अलग हो जाता है. Transfer में क्या आएगा? When I'm transferring goods, suppose एक unit है, one big factory is there, it has head office and it has a branch office. So when the goods are being transferred from the head office to head branch office, we will call it as a transfer, because within a company there cannot be a sale. एक ही कंपनी के अंदर सेल नहीं हो सकते हैं, तब वहां पे क्या होगा? ट्रांसफर होगा. So such transfer also is a supply. Why transfer is brought in? Because when you transfer, when you're moving any goods from your head office to branch office, वहां पे रेवेन्यू लीकेज होने का चांसेस है. You government will ask where is the tax on this? No, you will tell I'm only transferring from head office to branch office. तो फिर सब लोग ऐसे ही करेंगे, फिर टैक्स पे नहीं करेंगे. बिकॉज अल्टीमेटली इज इट ट्रांसफर और इज इट सेल, वी डोंट नो. So that's the reason they've said that even on this transfers, when you're transferring from head office to branch office, that is all pay GST from the supplier end, and from the receiver end, you will claim the credit. So tax neutral हो जाएगा. So in such a scenario, you still pay the GST because there should not be any revenue leakage. So transfer के ऊपर भी supply है और उसके ऊपर भी GST लगेगा. Okay. Third is in case of a barter. What is a barter? We know what is a barter. लेन देन. I give you something, you return something for me. A CA provides consultancy services for a medical practitioner, and the medical practitioner provides services to a CA. That is called as barter transaction. Exchange is also same, but it is slightly different. How is it different? Exchange of goods for goods is barter, but in case of exchange is an act of giving and taking one thing for another. Example will be that I am selling my old vehicle and I'm getting a new vehicle. The seller says that you give me the old vehicle plus you have to give me cash because the value of your old vehicle is not sufficient for the new vehicle which I'm giving. So I'll give the old vehicle plus some cash value or some other value for it. Like I'm selling my old vehicle plus giving 20,000 rupees. This is an example of exchange. So there's a difference between barter. Barter is something for something, but exchange is something plus cash and return for something is exchange. Okay. Then license. License is permission which is granted by a competent authority to engage in a business or occupation or in any activity which is otherwise unlawful. An activity which is unlawful, but because of permitting that person, it becomes lawful is example of a license. Okay. Now, license could mean license is similar to lease, except that possession is not transferred, like tally license. You give tally license. If you don't permit it to use legally, if you're not allowing him to use, then that usage is illegal because you have developed the software and you're giving one part of that license to him. Now, if he's using it without your permission, that will be unlawful usage. But since you are giving him permission, a permission which is granted by the competent authority to engage in the business or occupation, which is otherwise unlawful, because of this permission, it's becoming lawful. Okay. Then third, sixth part is disposal. Disposal matlab bas chhod dena, wherein you are giving away something. In sale also you're giving away something, but there is a exchange of something. There's a transfer. There's a quid pro quo. But in disposal, what it happens, you're giving away, disposing it off, but the property does not have any merchantable warranty. This is very important. मतलब क्या हुआ, जब मैं कुछ चीज डिस्पोज करता हूं, उस चीज अगर खराब हो जाए तो दैट पर्सन कैन नॉट आस्क मी. But in case of a sale, if there is any defect, if there's any problem in the product, he has a right to claim replacement against that product. But in case of a disposable, that will not happen because you're just disposing it off. पुराना लैपटॉप है, मैंने यूज किया है, अभी मैंने एक एनजीओ को डिस्पोज कर दिया है. Now, if that is not working, the NGO will not have a right to claim back anything from me because I have disposed it off. I'm not sold it. So when I'm disposing it off, it does not have any merchantable warranty. Then arrangement, rent is basically arrangement to rent something. When I give something on rent, that's a rental transaction. It could be rental of movable property or rental of immovable property, renting of machineries, renting of vehicles, renting of cars. All of that gets covered under rental. Lease is similar to rent, but lease is used in a context of immovable property. To make a legal agreement by which money is paid in order to use land or building or a vehicle or a piece of equipment at an agreed period of time. So when you take a house on lease, that is a lease transaction. Lease is where possession is transferred along with the right to use property. आपका building है, आपकी जगह है. Now you are giving the tenant to use that thing. जो आप उसके अंदर रहेगा, that's called possession. That's the right of possession along with the right to use. Not only you're giving him the possessional right, but you're giving him the right to use that property. Difference between license is similar to lease, except that possession is not transferred. In case of a lease, possession is given, and in a lease, possession is not transferred. You have the possession with you. As per classification in Schedule 2, license, lease, and rental of goods with or without transfer are all covered under supply of services since there is no transfer of title. Okay, so these are the 8 forms of supply. Now we'll understand these with examples. A buys a table for rupees 10,000 rupees for his personal use, and he sells it off for after 10 months of use to a dealer. Now, is this considered as a supply? No, this is not considered as supply because Mr. A is not in the business of buying and selling of coffee tables. He's used it for his personal use, not even for his official use. He's used for his personal use and he's selling it off. So this is not treated as in the course or furtherance of business. This is not a supply. Second scenario, Mr. B provides free coaching classes to its neighboring students. Okay, Mrs. B is there in apartment. अब उसके अड़ोस पड़ोस के बच्चों को वो पढ़ा रही है. दिस फ्री कोचिंग कर रही है तो इसको सप्लाई कहेंगे. ये बिजनेस हो गया ना क्योंकि ये तो रेगुलर कर रही है. इट विल नॉट बी लाइक एक दिन दो दिन. इट विल बी फॉर अ कंटिन्यूअस पीरियड. Then still it is not considered as a supply. Why so? Correct. Because I've said that it's a free coaching classes. तो मतलब क्या हुआ? It is without consideration. तो हमने कहा कि 7(1)(a) when the supply is without any of those exceptions, normal supply है तो फिर consideration होना जरूरी है. In this case consideration नहीं है, so it will not be a supply. For example, when a mobile phone worth 10,000 rupees is purchased in exchange of an old mobile along with the monetary consideration of 2,000 rupees, then this is an example of exchange transaction. So is there any major amendment in supply when we learn? No major amendment. 7(1)(a) is one, and the circular on one aspect which we will discuss in some time now. That is very important. Then next example is when a laptop is supplied for rupees 30,000 rupees along with a barter of printer that is manufactured by the recipient is an example of barter. You give a laptop, get a printer. That's an example of barter. Fourth last example is Katrina Kaif uses the service of a makeup artist from USA. She is bringing in a makeup artist from USA for her makeup. Now she is providing cinematic films, right? She is a heroine, so she will definitely be registered. Now, if she is considering using the services of foreigner in India, then it's an import of services. And then if it is import of services, supplier will not pay it, receiver will pay it under reverse charge mechanism. So on that, it is liable to GST and Katrina Kaif will pay GST under reverse charge mechanism. Okay. Before we get into other aspects, we will directly get into the important aspect of what is there under Schedule 2. We will go through other things, but since one of the person has asked what is the important amendment which is relevant for us, we will go through that amendment which is really important. That is second schedule. Now we know that what is second, but sir, in first example, it is not supply, but we still pay GST on purchasing it. First example, it's not a supply. Why it is not supply? When you are selling it, it is not a supply, but when you bought it, it is definitely a supply. When you buy a table, So from a supplier's perspective, he will charge GST because he is not concerned what you do with it. He is concerned whether he has to pay GST or no. So he will pay the GST. Correct? So supplier will pay the GST, but receiver will not be able to claim the credit. It is his cost. Now, when you are selling it again, you will not pay the GST is what I'm trying to say. Ayushi, is your question clear? I mean, is my answer clear with respect to your question? Okay. Okay. Now, we will go to 7.1, the schedule, what we have to discuss in terms of schedule 2. Okay. 7.1a. So 7, section 7, subsection 1 within brackets A is a section. Then we have 7.1 within the same brackets capital A. So 7.1 capital A is a section which says that I will tell you about the classification. Once you categorize something as supply, then you have to come to the next position of classifying it if it is goods or services. We know that GST is one tax, it is integrated goods and services, but still classification is required because based on the classification, we will decide whether it is supply of goods or whether it is supply of services. So that's the reason classification is important, and that classification clarity is given in Schedule 2. Why? Because earlier, as we had seen in the previous session, on supply of software, both VAT and service tax was levied. So service tax people used to treat it as service and VAT people used to treat it as supply of goods. To, to give clarity for the purpose, whether it is goods or services. Similarly, in terms of the works contract, right? In works contract, whether it's goods or services was confusing. That's why Schedule 2 has come in and it says that whether it is supply of goods or services, no more fighting up. I will dictate and I will tell whether it is goods or services. ठीक है, तो शेड्यूल 2 आपको ये क्लैरिटी देता है कि ये सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स है या सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विसेज. तो सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विस रहेगा तो आप सर्विसेज के रेट में जाएंगे, एंड इफ इट इज गुड्स देन यू विल गो फॉर द रेट शेड्यूल फॉर द गुड्स. तो जीएसटी में क्या होता है, जी रेट फॉर गुड्स एक अलग नोटिफिकेशन है एंड रेट फॉर सर्विसेज एक अलग नोटिफिकेशन है. अगर आप गुड्स सप्लाई कर रहे हो, जैसे एक बिल्डिंग है, बिल्डिंग को आप क्या सोचते हो, इज इट गुड्स और सर्विसेज? Building, few are saying it's good, few are saying it's not good. Correct. So this is exactly what was happening to industry also. लोग समझते थे कि आप तो बिल्डिंग बेच रहे हो, वो गुड्स है. फ्यू आर सेइंग नहीं, बिल्डिंग तो आपने लैंड पे खड़ा कर दिया, इट बिकम्स इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी. करेक्ट. सो बहुत सारे कंफ्यूजन थे, तो इसीलिए शेड्यूल 2 हमको ये क्लैरिफिकेशन देगा कि whether it is goods or services. Now we have, that's the reason we have come to schedule 2. Schedule 2 बताता है कि once it is supply, so first we agree that building is a supply of, is a supply because बिल्डिंग टेकिंग ऑन रेंट इज सप्लाई. ठीक है, वो सेकेंडरी हो गया. बिल्डिंग को मैं रेंट पे देता हूं, उसके ऊपर आप जीएसटी पे करोगे, फाइन. बट बिल्डिंग सेल पर से आई एम आस्किंग सुनील, इज इट सप्लाई? If before CC, then service, after CC, it's goods. No, no, no. Before CC, it is goods. After CC, it is immovable property. It is land sale. Okay? So, correct, Anmol, you have told it correctly that before completion certificate, there is something called as a completion certificate. Completion certificate के पहले अगर जब आप बिल्डिंग को सेल करते हो, then it is supply of service. बिकॉज बिल्डिंग में क्या होता है, यू गो टू अ बिल्डर एंड से मुझे एक घर चाहिए, ही विल टेल दिस इज द बिल्डिंग विच इज बीइंग कंस्ट्रक्टेड. तो आप उससे जो सीमेंट है, स्टील है, आयरन है, वो खरीद रहे हो या कंप्लीटेड स्ट्रक्चर खरीद रहे हो? यू आर डेफिनेटली नॉट बाइंग दैट इंडिविजुअल सीमेंट एंड स्टील. यू आर बाइंग द सर्विस ऑफ completing or converting that cement and steel into a structure and getting a complete product. Correct? So this is a service and that is what is said under schedule 2 also. Here I will go to that and then we'll come back. 5B, it says supply of service. The following shall be treated as supply of service, namely renting of immovable property, construction of a complex building, civil structure or a part thereof, including a complex or building intended for sale to a buyer, wholly or partly, except where the entire consideration has been issued after the issuance of completion certificate issued by the competent authority or after its first occupation, whichever is earlier. So basically क्या बोल रहा है ये, construction of complex आप करते हो और बेचते हो, then it's a supply of services. And when up to the date of issuance of completion certificate, कि अगर completion certificate आ गया उसके बाद आप बेच रहे हो, it means that completion certificate आ गया, it is fit to occupy. और उसके बाद जब आप सेल करते हो देन इट इज सेल ऑफ लैंड, उसके ऊपर जीएसटी नहीं लगेगा. दैट्स वे कि ऐसे कंफ्यूजन के लिए शेड्यूल 2 दिया गया है. नाउ यू अंडरस्टूड व्हाई शेड्यूल 2 इज इंपॉर्टेंट. We have to learn schedule 2. Yes, we have to learn schedule 2 because it will give us the classification of goods and services and it may be a question which may come for your exams. So any transfer of title in goods, हमने सेल के डेफिनेशन में देख लिया ऑलरेडी. टाइटल गुड्स इज सेल ऑफ गुड्स. नाउ अगर सेल है तो फिर सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स है. देन एनी ट्रांसफर ऑफ राइट इन गुड्स, फर्स्ट इज टाइटल इन गुड्स, सेकेंड राइट इन गुड्स, कि मेरे पास कुछ गुड्स है, मैं सेल तो नहीं करता हूं लेकिन आप यूज करो और मुझे बाद में दे देना. सो आई एम ट्रांसफरिंग द राइट इन द गुड्स. दैट इज सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विसेज. जैसे मेरे पास मशीनरी है, मशीनरी को मैंने आपको सेल नहीं किया है लेकिन आई गिवन द राइट टू यूज इट, राइट? सो एनी ट्रांसफर ऑफ राइट टू यूज इज अ सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विस. If sale of flat, we will charge GST. Yes, before completion certificates, yeah, we will charge GST. तो CST charge होता भी है. Transfer of title is goods. Transfer of right in goods is service. Transfer of title in goods under an agreement which stipulates that property in goods shall pass at a future date. मतलब आज तो ट्रांसफर नहीं हो रहा है लेकिन फ्यूचर में ट्रांसफर होगा. जैसे हायर परचेज वगैरह में होता है कि आई विल गिव यू हायर परचेज दैट यू पे मी द इंस्टॉलमेंट्स आफ्टर 1 year you will be the owner of the goods. That is also supply of goods itself. Then land and buildings, any lease or tenancy, easement, license to occupy land is supply of service. Any lease or letting out of the building, including a commercial, industrial, or residential complex, leasing, letting out is all supply of service. This yellow, green highlights is only a reference, not what is there in the main schedule. For your reference, I've mentioned this. like letting of residential complex for commercial purpose. It is not the nature of the property which determines the taxability, but the purpose of letting out. आप किसके लिए let out कर रहे हैं, that is the deciding factor. Any treatment or process which is applied to another person's goods. अब आपके पास गुड्स है, आपको उस पे ऊपर कुछ प्रोसेसिंग करना है, ठीक है। जैसे आपके पास एक आयरन रॉड है, अब उसको आपको क्या करना है, यू आर अ मैन्युफैक्चरर ऑफ आयरन रॉड्स, नाउ यू आर गिविंग इट टू मी, सेइंग दैट ऑन दिस आयरन रॉड्स सम काइंड ऑफ एक्टिविटी हैज टू हैपन, दिस इज कॉल्ड एज एक्सट्रूजन, कि आपको इन रॉड्स को छोटे पीसेस में कट करके देना है और सम एक्टिविटी प्रोसेस करना है मशीनरी के बेसिस पे, जो उसको फिर ऑटोमोबाइल इंडस्ट्री में यूज हो सके. So you have bought the iron and you're giving it to me. I am a extruder who will extrude these iron rods and I will extrude it and give it back to you. So who am I? I am called as a job worker. आप है main trader. You have bought that iron rods and you're giving it to me for extrusion and I will supply it back to you. You will do the packaging and then sell it. So you are a trader. For you it is sale of goods, but the goods which you have given to me, जिसके ऊपर मेरे को ट्रीटमेंट करना है या प्रोसेस करना है, that is a service. So any job worker doing any activity on the goods is a supply of service. ठीक है. Then transfer of business assets. When goods forming part of the assets of the business are being transferred, आप पूरा business transfer कर रहे हो, then it is supply of goods. Okay. Whereby or under direction of a person carrying on business, goods held or used for the purpose of business are put to any private use. आप एक प्रोप्राइटर हो, आपने कुछ चीजें खरीदी हैं बेचने के लिए, करेक्ट. यू आर अ डीलर ऑफ ड्रेस मटेरियल्स, यू आर बाइंग ड्रेस मटेरियल्स, सेलिंग ड्रेस मटेरियल्स, ठीक है. नाउ सम ड्रेस मटेरियल्स यू आर यूजिंग इट फॉर प्राइवेट यूज, घर पे लेके चले गए, देन दैट इज अ सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विस, क्योंकि आपने ट्रेडिंग के लिए खरीदा और आपने पर्सनल यूज के लिए यूज कर लिए, so that is supply of services. Then when any person ceases to be a taxable person, जब बिजनेस है उसको सीज कर दिया है, मतलब उसको बंद कर दिया गया है और जो बाकी असेट बचे हैं उसको बेच रहे हो, then it is again supply of goods itself. What is supply of services? Renting of immovable property. हमने देख लिया कि renting is supply of services. However, renting जब हम बोलते हैं, residential rent is exempt. There is something called as a exemption notification. उसमें ये क्लियरली लिखा गया है कि रेसिडेंशियल रेंट के लिए आप जब कुछ सप्लाई करते हो तब इट इज एग्जेम्प्टेड. सो रेसिडेंशियल ड्वेलिंग इज एग्जेम्प्ट अंडर जीएसटी. Then construction of complex, we have understood this is supply of service. Temporary transfer or permitting the use or enjoyment of intellectual property right. कुछ भी intellectual property right transfer करते हो, that is supply of service. देन डेवलपमेंट डिजाइन प्रोग्रामिंग ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी सॉफ्टवेयर. तो पहले सॉफ्टवेयर गुड्स है या सर्विस है, कंफ्यूजन था. अगर पैकेज सॉफ्टवेयर है तो गुड्स होता था, बट अगर कस्टमाइज सॉफ्टवेयर होता है तो सर्विस होता है. तो इसीलिए क्लियरली लिखा गया कि डेवलपमेंट, डिजाइन, प्रोग्रामिंग, कस्टमाइजेशन, अडॉप्शन, अपग्रेडेशन, एनहांसमेंट or any kind of implementation of information technology software is supply of service. इसका मतलब क्या हुआ, जब सॉफ्टवेयर रेडीमेड है उसको आप खरीदते हो तो वो गुड्स ही रहेगा, बिकॉज उसमें डेवलपमेंट आपके लिए नहीं किया गया है. अगर कुछ चीज आपके लिए डेवलप कर रहे हैं तब इट इज सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विस. अदरवाइज और रेडीमेड पैकेज, जैसे विंडोज ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम आप खरीदते हो, टैली सॉफ्टवेयर खरीदते हो, तब वो सॉफ्टवेयर ऑलरेडी रेडी है, आपके लिए कुछ डेवलपमेंट या एनहांस नहीं किया गया है, आपके लिए कुछ कस्टमाइजेशन नहीं किया गया है, देन इट इज सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स इटसेल्फ. ठीक है. देन अग्रीइंग टू द ऑब्लिगेशन टू रिफ्रेन फ्रॉम एन एक्ट और टू टॉलरेट एन एक्ट और अ सिचुएशन और टू डू एन एक्ट इज सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विस. इसका मतलब क्या है, अग्रीइंग टू द ऑब्लिगेशन टू रिफ्रेन फ्रॉम एक्ट. इसका दिस इज द मेजर थिंग विच आई वाज टॉकिंग की शेड्यूल 2 में वन थिंग इज देयर विच इज बीइंग सर्कुलेटेड, इसके लिए सर्कुलर आ गया है कि व्हाट ऑल थिंग्स विल गेट कवर्ड अंडर दिस पॉइंट स्पेसिफिकली विल डिस्कस इन डिटेल। तीनों पॉइंट डिस्कस करेंगे। अग्रीइंग टू द ऑब्लिगेशन टू रिफ्रेन फ्रॉम एक्ट, then agreeing to tolerate an act or situation, and agreeing to an act. These are the three things which are embodied here. All these three things is supply of service. What is this three things? Whether everything will get covered under service or no is what we will discuss. Then transfer of right to use any goods for any purpose, for cash, deferred payment or other valuable consideration. Right to use any goods. आपको कुछ गुड्स दिया गया है, यू कैन यूज इट एंड रिटर्न इट बैक टू मी, इट इज अगेन सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विस। देन कॉम्पोजिट सप्लाई में वर्क्स कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स, एनी काइंड ऑफ वर्क्स कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ऑन एनी इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी इज सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विस। जैसे बिल्डिंग का भी हमने देख लिया है, उसके अलावा जो भी इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी के रिलेटेड वर्क्स कॉन्ट्रैक्ट होता है, क्या होता है? कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ऑफ बिल्डिंग, कंस्ट्रक्शन, फैब्रिकेशन, कंप्लीशन, इरेक्शन, एनीथिंग विच यू डू is all supply of service. Then supply by way of or part of any service in any other manner of goods being food or other article for human consumption. जब भी आप रेस्टोरेंट में जाते हो, खाना खाते हो, then same, जैसे मैंने क्वेश्चन पूछा था in terms of building, same question comes here. Do you go to a restaurant to eat the food or something else? जैसे आप एक रोटी खाते हो, जब आटा खरीदने जाते हो या फिर रोटी खाने जाते हो आप? और when you go to a restaurant, do you go to buy vegetable or you go to buy a cooked dish? करेक्ट, रोटी खरीदने जाते हो, सिमिलरली कुक डिश के लिए जाते हो, नॉट द बेसिक वेजिटेबल्स के लिए। इफ यू आर गोइंग एंड बाइंग बेसिक वेजिटेबल्स देन इट इज सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स, बट कुकिंग ऑफ अ डिश, वहां पे क्या एम्बियंस के लिए, वहां के वेटर आपको सर्व करेंगे, वहां के फूड के लिए, वहां के पूरे एम्बियंस के लिए जाते हो। सो इट इज all of these things which is embodied or included in the restaurant services, तो इसीलिए इट इज अ सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विस, नॉट द सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स। इवन दो वो दे रहा है कुछ गुड्स इटसेल्फ, लेकिन उसके लिए कुछ प्रोसेस इन्वॉल्व है, उसके लिए कुछ एक्टिविटी इन्वॉल्व है, उसके एनवायरनमेंट पूरा इन्वॉल्व है, इसलिए इवन दो यू आर गेटिंग अ प्रोडक्ट बट इन्वॉल्व्स लॉट ऑफ प्रोसेस, दैट्स वे रेस्टोरेंट सर्विसेज इज ट्रीटेड एज सप्लाई ऑफ सर्विसेज। ठीक है। और इसलिए रेस्टोरेंट पे कितना परसेंट जीएसटी लगता है? रेस्टोरेंट पे 5% जीएसटी लगता है। ठीक है। नाउ वील गेट इन टू दिस एस्पेक्ट ऑफ agreeing to the obligation or refraining from act in detail. Before that, can we take a break of around 5 to 7 minutes? 6, 4:10 हुआ है। By around 4:15, 4:17, we will assemble back and go through this thing wherein a circular is there explaining that in detail. We will go through that. Please explain previous point. Which point, Anmol? Okay. You please put your point. Once we are coming from the break, we will discuss your point. We were discussing on composite supply. Somebody was asking what is 6B, which is supply by way of or part of a service in whatsoever manner of goods being food or any other article. 6B is restaurant services, Anmol, that any restaurant services, what is being provided is a supply of service. Even though goods is getting involved, ultimately the objective is supply of service. So any restaurant services which is being provided is a supply of service. Okay. Now we will detail in discuss this part 5E and whatever are the other aspects with respect to uh, schedule 2. So there are a few clarifications which have been issued by the CBIC. They've said that there is something called as a tenancy rights. Okay, so we understood that in case of residential rental, it is exempted. However, taxability of tenancy rights under GST is different, which is also called as pagdi, wherein the activity of transfer of tenancy right against consideration is supply of service. So you have various rights. A landlord has various rights under a, a immovable property rights. So he has a right of possession, he has a right of control, he has a right of exclusion, he has a right to derive income, and he has a right to dispose it of. Matlab, he has a right to sell it. So a landlord has so many rights with him. Now, one of those rights is tenancy rights, that he can give the property what he has to a tenant. Now, this when he gives somebody, he gets some goodwill. Okay. Now, if he gets some goodwill, what will be the treatment of that is what is this clarification saying? Clarification is saying that the activity of this transfer of tenancy rights against consideration is supply of service. So if you get transfer the tenancy rights for some consideration, this is liable to GST. However, the grant of tenancy right in residential dwelling is exempted. So if you give a pagdi, you get a pagdi is a amount of it's like a goodwill amount which you give to the landowner, saying that you give me the tenancy rights, I will collect the rent from the tenants and maintain it, for which I will give you a consideration. This is pagdi. Now this pagdi or tenancy rights given for residential dwelling will be exempted. Now it is there with one tenant. Now you have this tenancy rights. Now, if the landlord wants to take this back, he has to give me the money. Again, this pagdi could be both the sides, landlord giving to the tenant or tenant giving to the landlord. Now, the landlord wants to vacate this tenant. So, this tenancy rights has to be surrendered. The surrendering the tenancy rights for consideration. Now, whatever consideration the landlord will give back to the tenant, saying that I want to get back the tenancy rights what I have given to you, for which I will give you the tenancy, that is liable to GST. Understood? There are three parts to it. One is transfer of tenancy rights against consideration is supply of service under GST, but such supply will be exempted if it is residential dwelling. Correct. And this residential dwelling is exempted. Third part is surrendering this tenancy rights is liable to GST, because there is not, it is not for residential dwelling, it is for getting back the right. That's why the third aspect of surrendering this tenancy rights is liable to GST. Very good question. Residential dwelling tenancy is exempted under which section? It is exempted under section 11, read with notification number 12 of 2017. There is a big exemption notification called notification number 12 of 2017. All exemption of services comes under that. Even residential dwelling is coming under that notification. That notification gets power from section 11 of the GST. Pagdi is refundable? No, Pagdi is generally not refundable. That is on classification of schedule 2 in terms of Pagdi. Now, important thing is this was there even before. Another thing, that 5E, what we were discussing, that is very important. What is exempt under notification number 12? Residential dwelling. So residential rent. So any rent you give is liable to GST. We know it is supply of service. Now, if you give any commercial rent, you have a shop, you have a showroom, and you're giving it for rent, that is taxable. But if you give a house, so that on house, do you pay any GST? For your house, you pay any rent on that? Does the supplier pay charge GST or you pay any GST? You don't pay. Why? Because it is exempted under this exemption notification. Okay. Now, 5E of this second schedule says agreeing to the obligation to refrain from an act or to tolerate an act or a situation or to do an act is supply of service. Which means what are they trying to say is there are three activities which is liable to GST as supply of service. First is agreeing to the obligation to refrain from an act. I am doing some act is a positive act. I am, that is supply. I am agreeing to an obligation to refrain something. So I am agreeing that I will not do something. That is also a supply. Now, what is that example? Non-compete agreement. I am a part of a company. Now, when I left that company, I got some consideration saying that, okay, I will not do any competitive business. That is a non-compete agreement. So I am agreeing to refrain. Refrain matlab stopping or not doing something. Since I know all the secrets of your company. If I open another company, your business will get impacted. So I'm agreeing to refrain from entering into competitive business. So that is a non-compete agreement. Second, a builder refrains from constructing more than a certain number of floors. A builder has a permission to construct 14 floors. But the next builder, the building which is there next to it, saying that if you build 14 floors, I will not get ventilation. So I will pay you some consideration. You build only 10 floors. So he's not building 4 extra floors, which means he is refraining from building extra 4 floors. So this agreeing to the obligation or refraining from an act is one kind of service. So non-compete agreement and builder refraining from constructing is an example for that. Then second part is agreeing to tolerate, agreeing to the obligation to tolerate an act or situation. What is this? A shopkeeper is having a shop and he is getting his retail customers in it. But for whatever reason, a shopkeeper says that a hawker comes in, मतलब एक हाथ गाड़ी वाला आता है, and he says that I want to keep my shop in front of you, but this will impact the retailer's business, right? But he still allows him to keep it over there for a consideration. Now, this shopkeeper allowing a hawker to operate on the common pavement, that is passage in front of the shop, is this second thing wherein I am agreeing to the obligation to tolerate that act of that fellow selling his goods there. Why I will allow it could be for various reasons, that it is complementary to my business, that my business and his business will run together and it is not competitive to each other. Whatever reason, I am agreeing that he will stay in the pavement which is blocking my way. I am still allowing him and getting a consideration. That is a second case of agreeing to the obligation to tolerate an act. I'm tolerating that that person is blocking my customer's way. And the third one is agreeing to the obligation to do an act. What is this? This is a case where an industrial unit agrees to install equipment for zero emission at the behest of a RWA. RWA means Residential Welfare Association. I am agreeing to the obligation to do an act. I am an industry. Next to my industry, there is a welfare association. Now, that welfare association is saying that, boss, you are a factory. you will emit some liquid. Now, if you emit some liquid or some kind of chemical liquid, chemical wastage, that will impact my association. So what you do is you install a zero emission plant in your factory, for which I will pay you consideration. Now this factory agrees, okay, I will do it, but it will be an extra charge. You have to pay me a consideration. Yes, Residential Welfare Association is saying that, okay, for the welfare of my association, I have to do it. I'll pay it. Now he will install it, and then there will be zero emission. That liquid will not be emitted outside. It will get converted into gas. It will go off in the air. So by that, what is happening? There is no contamination of that water of the Residential Welfare Association. So in this, what I'm doing, I am agreeing to the obligation to do some act. I will agree that, okay, whatever waste I'm doing, I will not let out the waste. I will put it under this zero emission plant at the request of anybody. Now, this is also one of the forms of supply. So these are the three things which is getting covered under this. Now, there were a lot of confusion saying that what will get covered, what will not get covered. That's why this circular, what we will read, various categories of supply are there, which will decide whether it's a supply or no. So it means residential dwelling is exempted. And if you're giving any rent for residential purpose, is taxable? No. If we are giving any rent, residential dwelling is exempted. And if you are giving any rent for residential purpose, it is exempted. If it is exempted, why it will be taxable? Correct? Residential dwelling is exempted. Can you, if you're clear, fine. Otherwise, you can raise your hand. I will unmute you. Because residential dwelling is very basic to understand. Understood. Okay. Yes, Priyanka.
यस सर रेजिडेंशियल ड्वेलिंग जो है उसमें सर हम इसको ये भी तो बोल सकते हैं रेजिडेंशियल हाउसेस, इसको ड्वेलिंग क्यों कहा जा रहा है रेजिडेंशियल ड्वेलिंग?
हाउसेस एक चीज हो जाती है, ड्वेलिंग में अंदर हाउसेस भी इंक्लूड हो जाते हैं। सपोज हाउस है, हाउस के अलावा रेसिडेंशियल पर्पस के लिए छोटा हट दिया गया है या छोटा रूम दिया गया है, तो फिर रेसिडेंशियल हाउस, रेसिडेंशियल हट, रेसिडेंशियल रूम सब कहा जाएगा। इसलिए एक वर्ड यूज कर दिया गया है रेसिडेंशियल ड्वेलिंग। उसमें हाउस, रूम्स, सिंगल रूम्स, स्टूडियो रूम्स सब कवर हो जाते हैं। वॉट एवर थिंग यू यूज फॉर रेसिडेंशियल पर्पसेस विल बी एग्जेम्प्टेड।
सर हमें ये पता कैसे चलेगा लाइक ये रेजिडेंस पर्पस के लिए यूज हो रहा है कि नहीं, इन केस की प्राइमा फेसी जो है वो किसी और मतलब कि कमर्शियल पर्पस के लिए यूज हो रहा हो, पर ऐसा प्राइमा फेसी शो किया जा रहा हो कि लाइक हम इसे ना रेजिडेंशियल पर्पस के लिए यूज कर रहे हैं, तो उसको आइडेंटिफाई कैसे करेंगे?
तो हम आइडेंटिफाई नहीं कर सकते। एज अ सप्लायर ऑफ अ residential unit, you will supply as a residence thing. Now it's up to the receiver whether he uses for residents or non-residents. अगर वो residents के लिए use करता है तो फिर ठीक है। If he is not using for a residential purpose, then he is using it illegally for anything else. Even if it is using for commercial purposes, the liability is on him because you have entered into an agreement that you will supply it for a residential purposes. So it will be for residential purposes. It is up to him because as a landlord, you don't have control on the usage. So you can't control it. It is up to the recipient to keep it within the agreement, because in your agreement, you would have mentioned that it is used for residential purposes. Now, if he doesn't comply with it, it's a breach of that agreement between you and the tenant.
ओके सर, अंडरस्टूड सर।
Thank you. But one thing to be noted here is there is an amendment in this that a residential unit, okay, if it is supplied to a registered person, okay, then it is liable to GST under reverse charge. When will this come? अगर मैं कुछ रेसिडेंशियल यूनिट है, एक कंपनी को देता हूँ, company is using it as a guest house for its guests, okay, then
Yes, sir.
GST will be liable under reverse charge basis.
ओके सर। सर समझ गए।
Yes, here renting dwelling is exempt and renting of house property for residential purpose is exempt. Correct. Okay, now let's proceed with 5E cases. There are three cases which is getting covered. Agreeing to the obligation to refrain from act, I will not do anything. Second is agreeing to the obligation to tolerate an act. First is I will not do anything. Second is if something comes in between, I will tolerate that. Third is in terms of an obligation to do an act. I am agreeing that I will do something extra. Now these three things will be liable to GST when it is there is a contract, because it says that agreeing to the obligation, that agreement cannot be a oral agreement. It should be through a contract. Now that contract could be a express contract that I sign a contract or a implied agreement. Matlab, I am not signed a contract, by my actions it becomes implied. Now when the hawker came in and kept his store in front of my shop and I allowed him and I'm getting some consideration, which means I don't have a contract with him, but by my action of allowing, it is considered as a implied agreement. So that's why there could be a contract, which could be an express contract, or it could be an implied agreement. That is the first condition. And there should be a consideration which must flow in return of this contract. Two things to have those three things in place is I should have a contract which could be an expressed contract or implied contract. Oral contract will not work. Second condition is there should be a consideration which should flow. If there is no consideration, then no question. There should be a consideration and there should be a expressed or implied contract. So here in point 5E, there is a concept of refrain and tolerance, but there are also not in the course of furtherance business. Doesn't say not in the course or furtherance of business, right? It says that obligation to refrain from an act or to tolerate an act or a situation or to do an act. So this will be somewhere linked to business, not directly with the business, but linked to the business itself. What are those cases? Few instances which has been practically seen has been clarified by the circular. First is liquidated damages. What is liquidated damages? I enter into a contract with you. Understand this because the theory of this is there in your study material, but to understand this, we will have to see how it is applied. What is liquidated damages? I've entered into a contract with you, and when I entered into a big contract with you, you will say that I will pay you the consideration, but you should fulfill this contract within the stipulated time. If you do not complete it within a stipulated time, you have to pay me some damages, some compensation for the delay. That is called as liquidated damages. Or if some product is being delivered, like some machinery is being installed. Now, if this machinery doesn't get operational after being installed within 7 days, then I cannot return it because it's a big machinery. So you have to pay me damages for it. That is called as liquidated damages. Now, this liquidated damages, is it under 5E in terms of any act to refrain? No, it's not refrain. Is it an act to tolerate? That was the question, whether you're tolerating that there is a damage, so you're paying me. Then the board clarify that a flow of money from the party who causes the breach of contract to the party who suffers loss or damage due to such breach. So it is only a compensation. This is not that I'm tolerating something. Such payments do not constitute a consideration for a supply and hence they are not taxable because there is no supply which is happening for liquidated damages. It is being charged so that You ensure that you're giving a good quality product. You ensure that you are delivering your commitment on time. Nobody would be willing to pay these liquidated damages because they want to honor that they get full value for the product or full value for the contract. I will not incur any loss knowingly. Just because some mistake would have happened, I have to pay. That's a penalty kind of a thing. And on such liquidated damages, there is no supply which I will get from the customer. Customer will only say that, okay, this is not done correctly, so I have to pay him this liquidated damages. That's the reason this liquidated damages is not a supply and it is not taxable. Okay. Second, we'll go through this slide and take up your questions. Second is check dishonor or fine. I've given a check now that has got dishonored, and the person to whom I have to pay, he is collecting that, okay, boss, you gave me a check. Now it's got dishonored or it's got failed. Now you have to pay me a check dishonor fine. Is that liable to GST? No supplier would again want a check given by him to be dishonored. For some reason, it's got dishonored. The fine or penalty that the supplier or the banker imposes for dishonor of the check is a penalty imposed not for tolerating anything. He's not tolerating any act, but it's a fine or penalty imposed for not tolerating that. That's why here also it is not a consideration for any supply. It is not taxable because check dishonor charges is only to make sure that this person next time gives a check which is getting honored. Otherwise, I will take legal action against him. For that reason, some check dishonor charges has been charged, not for any consideration for any return or something. When the person who's a customer who is charging check dishonor charges, he's not getting anything in return for it. So it is not a consideration for any service and it is not taxable. Then penalty imposed for violation of laws. Penalty imposed for violation of laws such as any kind of traffic violations or violation of population pollution norms. The government charges some kind of penalty. They are also not consideration for any supply received. Again, they are not taxable. So any kind of penalty nature what we pay. The GST authorities, while doing the audit, they used to levy GST on that to do away such authoritative actions by the tax officers. The board has given a circular saying that on liquidated damages, check dishonor, and penalty imposed, GST is not applicable. Yes, any questions in this? You're clarified with this? No questions here. Let's proceed with the next. Penalty in delay in construction. Still, penalty in delay in construction also would be in case of residential construction if there is a delay, right? So there also it is a kind of liquidated damages wherein I am paying to the ultimate customer delay charges for handing over the constructed apartment in a delayed manner. So that's still equivalent to a liquidated damages. There also GST would not apply. Then next is forfeiture of salary or payment of bond of termination. So you are under employment, and when you are under employment, you have that you have to be with the company for 1 year. Now you have got a better opportunity, or for health reason, you have to leave the company before 1 year, but you have an agreement of a bond for 1 year. Now you have left at the period of 10 years, 10 months. Now for leaving the employment in between, for 2 months, you have to pay a kind of a return the salary or you have to pay a compensation. what happens to that? Penalties for dissuading the non-serious employees from taking up employment and to discourage and deter such a situation. Or it's possible that the employees take the employment over here and they want to leave without serving the notice period. Without doing a notice period, they want to leave, which means that in between what you have recruited the employee for, his work is not getting completed. What happens in such case? You will charge something called forfeit the salary, saying that last salary what we have to pay you, we will not pay you because you have not served the notice period. Now, this was treated that it is supply because this is amount which is paid by the employee indirectly to the employer. Now, employer had to pay him salary, but instead of employer paying, he is withholding it, which means the employee is paying the amount to the employee, or the employee wants to leave in between, then the employee has to pay money to the employer. Now, what is covered under Schedule 3 is services by the employee to employer. When the employer pays salary, it is exempted or it is outside the scope of GST. But in this case, the employee is paying to the employer. Will this be liable to GST? Then the circular said that this is a penalty for dissuading the non-serious employees, matlab not encouraging the non-serious employees, so penalty is being charged. Further, the employee does not get anything in return. If he is paying some compensation to the company, he is not getting anything in return from the employer. Therefore, such amounts recovered by the employer are not taxable. So any amounts recovered by the employer from the employee is not taxable. Clear? Understand this point? It is possible that salary is supply from the amount paid from the employer to employee. But this amount is paid by the employee to employer. So that's why that question came in that yes, it can be chargeable. But then they've clarified that this is not something that for a supply or something the employer gets for getting it or the employee gets anything. Therefore, this is not a supply and not taxable. Then late payment charges or fees. The facility of accepting late payments with interest or late payment fees or fine or penalty, which is a facility granted by the supplier, which is naturally bundled with the main supply. It is a ancillary supplied, naturally bundled and supplied in conjunction with the principal supply. It should be assessed at the same rate as the principal supply. Now I have supplied some goods to you saying that you should pay me within 10 days. Now, if you do not pay within 10 days, I will charge late fees and interest. This is for the main supply itself. This is not a separate supply. It is for the main supply itself. So any interest and late fees, what I'm collecting is liable to GST, but there is no special rate for this. Whatever is the rate for the main supply, that same rate has to apply to the interest also. This is the concept of composite supply, where there are two supplies, but they are naturally bundled. Okay, so this makes us to understand the composite supply also. When I am making two supplies which are naturally bundled, I am not artificially bundling it. It's just that when I'm supplying, you have to buy naturally pay me late fees also. So when such late fees is paid, it is naturally bundled. When it is naturally bundled, then what is the principal supply? That supply will be considered as the GST rate for the ancillary supply also. Now, in that context, let us bring the concept of composite supply in detail. When I'm supplying any air conditioner, I will give you installation also. Now, air conditioner, say it is 5% rate and the installation is a service, it is taxable at 18%. So when I'm giving you air conditioner with installation, what should be the GST rate I should charge you? Somebody is saying 18 plus 5, somebody is saying only 5, somebody is saying 18. Okay, so in my example, it was air conditioner is at 5%, and the service of installation was at 18%. So if it is 5% for the air conditioner and installation is 18%, what is the GST rate on the main supply, that is the air conditioner? So you are going and buying a air conditioner, you're not buying installation services. Installation is coming as a naturally bundled service along with the air conditioner. So without my installation, you cannot get it installed from outsider because this is company recognized installation. So you have to buy, say, from the same person itself. So it is naturally bundled. So the 5% rate will apply for the air conditioning and the installation also. So installation will be free, yes, but it will be bundled. So in my facts, I'm saying that installation also is part of it. Correct. So, and there is a separate charge for the installation. Then on that installation also 5% will apply. But if you want to remove from one place to another place, then it's a supply of service on which 18% will be charged, because supply of service is 18%, but this is a naturally bundled service. Then that what is the GST rate on the main supply will apply on the ancillary supply also. Similarly, in this example, when there is a facility of accepting late payment, this is late payment is in relation to the main supply. And what is the rate for the main supply? That same GST rate will apply for the late payment and interest. Clear till here? Awesome. So next, go to the next clarifications. Two more clarifications they've given here. One is in case of a fixed capacity charges for power. जब आप power लेते हो तब there'll be a fixed charges and there is a variable charges. Now the question came is that fixed charge जो लगाते हैं उसके नीचे भी if you are using it, so you have late payment fees will be activity to tolerate an act, not necessarily to tolerate an act. It's just to compensate for the late charges. So it will not be an activity to it can be an activity to tolerate an act of late payment. Yes, that can be covered under that. Okay, now electricity, we are saying that you have fixed charges, you have a variable charges. Fixed charges is for 100 units. Now you have consumed only 60 units, but still you pay for that whole 100 units. Now the question came in that what is that extra 40 units which I'm not used but still I'm paying? Is that electricity charges or is it something else? For that, there's a clarification. It says that the fact that minimum fixed charges remain the same, whether electricity is consumed or not, or it is scheduled or consumed below the contracted or available capacity, does not mean that minimum fixed charge or part of it is charged for tolerating an act, because they are not, the electricity company is not tolerating anything. There is a lot of work they have to do. They have to transform the electricity. They have to appoint persons. There so much of back end work they have to do, for which this is the minimum fixed charges they have to levy. And above that, there is a variable charges. So both are towards the electricity charges itself, and electricity is exempted. So that's the reason whatever charges we pay, fixed charge or variable charge, this is not towards tolerating any act. Both of this are towards electricity, and the total electricity bill is exempt from GST. Okay. Then cancellation charges. Generally, when you go for railway ticket, you will cancel it after 1 month. Cancellation charges will be. If you do a hotel booking, then you'll pay a cancellation charges. Then you'll pay. You've canceled it, and you'll pay cancellation charges. Flight ticket you booked, then cancel it. Cancellation charges comes in. So are these cancellation charges liable to GST? Again, here it says that cancellation fees can be considered as a charges for the costs involved in making arrangements for the intended supply and the costs involved in cancellation of the supply. So this involves the burden, saying that you have booked a hotel, now that is blocked for you. Now, if somebody has to come in, he cannot give it to you. So that's This is a cancellation charges which is charged for making that arrangements for you. Now, if you didn't turn up, we have to pay you. We'll charge you some cancellation charges. So this cancellation charges is supply. The facilitation service of allowing cancellation against payment is also a natural part of this bundle. Therefore, it should be assessed same like the principal supply itself. Cancellation जो भी हो जाता है, that should be treated in par for the purpose of GST as the पार्ट ऑफ द मेन सप्लाई. जो मेन सप्लाई का रेट है, सपोज होटल बुकिंग है, होटल बुकिंग का चार्ज 12% है, तो कैंसिलेशन चार्जेस ऑल्सो विल बी एट 12%. इट इज अ टैक्सेबल सप्लाई. When we cancel our tickets, whole money is not recovered. They cut, yes, they cut something that is called as cancellation charge. So if you have paid 500 rupees for a ticket, that is supply of service. Now, when you're canceling it, they will pay you 450 rupees. Now, what happens to that 50 rupees? Because that is a consideration for them. That 50 rupees, is it taxable or no? Is that question on that last aspect of cancellation charges. It is taxable, correct. Yeah, so that 50 rupees will be taxable at the same nature of service, because you have to understand the nature of service. It will be treated as a composite supply. Whatever is the GST rate for the main supply, Komalpreet, that will apply for the cancellation charges also. How to classify which charges are GST leviable or not in examination if other cases given on these principles. So they've given you 6 principles. Okay, so 3 plus 2 plus 2. 7 principles have been given. Based on this understanding of 7 principles, you have to apply, because there'll be various situations given to you. If you go through the study material on these 7 cases, which will detailedly given, like how we have explained you, that is same explanation which is given in the study material. You will go through it and you will apply your logic. Based on the application of logic, you will get to know whether it is leviable to GST or no. So when we pay GST on booking tickets, then we cancel tickets, then what about ITC on that transaction? So on that cancellation charges, you will not get credit because you have not availed the service, right? So, but cancellation is a charge which is charged by the supplier. So it means they have facilitated you to not pay the full amount. So to that extent, they have provided that service, correct? So to that extent, you have received the service of not paying the full amount. So you have received the service, so you can claim the credit on that. These 7 cases main for understanding, correct? And you will get any questions around this 7 cases itself with some examples. Okay. So last half an hour left. Let us concentrate on other important aspects under supply. Okay. Now we understood the definition of goods and services. We understood the 8 terms. We understood schedule 2, right? Next is consideration. Credit is not blocked, Arun, because it's not a blocked credit. Okay. Consideration, we know that what is consideration? Consideration is something which is quid pro quo, that I supply something. कैंसिलेशन चार्जेस पे जीएसटी कॉस्ट पर लगेगा सर. हाँ, जो कैंसिलेशन चार्जेस है उसके ऊपर जीएसटी लगेगा. ठीक है, क्योंकि पहले 500 रुपए का, जैसे मैंने एग्जांपल दिया, 500 रुपए टिकट था उसके ऊपर जीएसटी लगाया. लेकिन आप कैंसिलेशन कर रहे हो, 450 रुपीज रिटर्न कर रहे हो, तो 450 का क्रेडिट नोट रेज करेगा सप्लायर. मतलब 500 माइनस 450, बाकी के ऊपर आपको जीएसटी 50 रुपीज के ऊपर, बैलेंस के ऊपर आपको जीएसटी लग रहा है. correct? So on that 50, GST is getting charged on you. Okay. Now consideration. When I supply something, there has to be consideration. Correct? हमने 7(1)(a) में पढ़ा था. There should be consideration. It should be in the course or furtherance of business. तो consideration क्या बोलता है? Consideration means a transaction in money कि आपको कुछ monetary या non-monetary return मिलना चाहिए. Correct? So this monetary or non-monetary return is consideration. This consideration can come from the recipient or it can come from somebody else. आप जा रहे हो, आपके बिहाफ में पेमेंट कर देता हूं, सप्लायर को तो पैसे मिल रहे हैं, सो दैट इज कंसिडरेशन ट्रीटेड एज वैलिड कंसिडरेशन. लेकिन one exception is that if the subsidy is given by the central government or state government, it is not considered as a supply. अगर कुछ सब्सिडी मिलता है किसी को, तो फिर सब्सिडी कहाँ से मिल रहा है? अगर सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट या स्टेट गवर्नमेंट दे रही है तो उसे कंसिडरेशन के अंदर नहीं माना जाएगा. जैसे सब्सिडी मिल गई है बेलिंडा गेट्स फाउंडेशन, मतलब इट इज नॉट अ सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट, नॉट अ स्टेट गवर्नमेंट, तो वो कंसिडरेशन, वो जो सब्सिडी मिली है, दैट विल बी टैक्सेबल. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट, अगर सब्सिडी सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट या स्टेट गवर्नमेंट से मिल रही है तब कंसिडरेशन में नहीं कहा जाएगा. अगर किसी और से मिल रही है तब टैक्सेबल हो जाएगा. सेंड देन सब डिपॉजिट, जब मैं किसी बंदे को डिपॉजिट देता हूं, देन द डिपॉजिट इज नॉट फॉर सप्लाई, सो डिपॉजिट इज नॉट अ कंसिडरेशन. लेकिन वो डिपॉजिट में डिफॉल्ट कर देता हूं दूसरे कुछ पेमेंट में, एंड द डिपॉजिट इज एडजस्टेड टुवर्ड्स माई पेमेंट. आई हैव टू पे समबडी 1 लाख रुपीज. मैंने पे नहीं किया, लेकिन उसके पास मेरे 60,000 रुपीज डिपॉजिट थे, तो उसने 60,000 ये 1 लाख के अगेंस्ट एडजस्ट कर लिया है, तब वो 60,000 रुपीज कंसिडरेशन माना जाएगा. ठीक है? डोनेशंस क्या कंसिडरेशन है? डोनेशंस जनरली कंसिडरेशन नहीं है, क्योंकि जब मैं डोनेशन करता हूँ कुछ रिटर्न के लिए नहीं करता हूँ. बट अगर इफ आई गिव सम डोनेशन और उसको एनजीओ को बोलता हूँ कि आपको डोनेशन तभी मिलेगा तब आप मेरा नाम आपके हर जगह पे यूज करोगे, आप मेरे लिए कुछ काम करोगे, मेरा नाम मार्केट करोगे, देन इट बिकम्स अ क्विड प्रो क्यो. तो फिर उसका ऑब्लिगेशन हो जाता है कि आई हैव टू डू समथिंग. then that donation is a consideration and GST is liable on that. When I don't give any expectation or I don't give any obligation on the person who is getting the donation, then it is not a consideration. लेकिन मैं कुछ obligation देता हूं तब donation के ऊपर भी GST लगेगा. उसका मतलब क्या हुआ? Any gift or donation is made to a charitable organization and the payment has the character of a gift or donation. ओके. एंड द पर्पस इज फिलैंथ्रोपिक, मतलब मैं अच्छे काम के लिए दे रहा हूं, विच इज विदाउट एनी क्विड प्रो क्यू, विदाउट एनीथिंग इन रिटर्न, फॉर गुड कॉज विच आई एम गिविंग, दैट इट लीड्स टू नो कमर्शियल गेन. फिलैंथ्रोपिक मतलब वन वे, कुछ भी रिटर्न कमर्शियल रिटर्न में एक्सपेक्ट नहीं कर रहा हूं, देन इट इज एग्जेम्प्टेड, इट विल नॉट बी लायबल टू जीएसटी. प्रमोशन के लिए डोनेशन होगा तो टैक्सेबल, करेक्ट, प्रमोशन के लिए हो जाएगा तो टैक्सेबल. जैसे मैं एक गाड़ी देता हूँ एक एनजीओ को जो हर जगह वो यूज करते हैं, अब उस गाड़ी के ऊपर मैंने कहा कि सब जगह पे मेरा नाम होना चाहिए, आगे पीछे साइड में. उससे क्या होता है? मेरा मार्केटिंग हो जाएगा, दैट आई हैव गिवन समथिंग, और मेरा गुडविल बढ़ जाएगा. देन that is liable to GST because I have some marketing and commercial intent. Okay, then it is liable to GST. लेकिन वो सामने वाले बोलते हैं कि नहीं, आपका नाम तो हम लिखेंगे एज अ मैटर ऑफ माई ग्रैटिट्यूड, तो फिर जस्ट एक ही जगह पे लिखेंगे डोनेटेड बाय इन्फोसिस प्राइवेट लिमिटेड. तो सिर्फ एक ही जगह पे लिख रहे हैं, देन दैट इज जस्ट बिकॉज ऑफ देयर ग्रैटिट्यूड एंड पब्लिक रिकग्निशन के लिए दे रहे हैं, बट मैं कुछ नहीं बोल रहा हूँ उसको कि वो आप करो, देन इट इज नॉट लायबल टू जीएसटी. मतलब इन अ नटशेल, जब मैं कुछ देता हूं विदाउट एनी एक्सपेक्टेशन, दैट इज अ डोनेशन, नॉट लायबल टू जीएसटी. बट इफ आई गिव समथिंग विद अ एक्सपेक्टेशन एंड commitment that you have to do some basic things, that is liable to GST. That is a supply and liable to GST. नेक्स्ट कंसिडरेशन का एग्जांपल है आर्ट वर्क. जब एक पेंटर या कोई डिजाइनर होता है, वो आर्ट वर्क एग्जीबिशन में डिस्प्ले करता है, क्या सिर्फ एग्जीबिशन पे डिस्प्ले करने पे जीएसटी लग जाएगा? सर एक्सचेंज या बार्टर के केस में दोनों के लिए बिजनेस पर्पस चेक करना है क्या, एंड हाउ विल इट बी चेक? इनवॉइसिंग एंड टैक्स, यस, बोथ द प्लेसेस. सो इफ आई एम एक्सचेंजिंग, a good example for this Vikas is in case of a gold dealer. ठीक है, a person who is dealing in gold, उसको क्या होता है, पुराने गोल्ड सेल करते हैं. सो आई हैव माई ओल्ड गोल्ड, आई एम सेलिंग इट, आई विल गेट सम न्यू गोल्ड. करेक्ट. सो व्हेन आई एम सेलिंग इट, आई एम नॉट अ डीलर ऑफ गोल्ड, तो मैं पुराना गोल्ड बेच रहा हूँ. करेक्ट. व्हेन आई एम सेलिंग दिस ओल्ड गोल्ड, दिस इज नॉट माई बिजनेस, सो आई डोंट हैव टू चार्ज जीएसटी. लेकिन वो नया गोल्ड बेच रहा है, ही इज इन टू द बिजनेस ऑफ डीलिंग ऑफ गोल्ड, सो ही विल चार्ज जीएसटी टू मी. ओके. करेक्ट. सो इन आर्ट वर्क एवरीबडी इज गिविंग करेक्ट आंसर. आर्ट सिर्फ डिस्प्ले करने से कुछ जीएसटी नहीं लगेगा, लेकिन आर्ट वर्क कुछ खरीदेगा तब जीएसटी लगेगा, वो ही के क्लैरिफिकेशन बोलता है. Name plates displayed like promotion, but the donor is not carrying on any business. Promotion not commercial person, then yeah, promotion not commercial, commercial कुछ भी होने दो, मार्केटिंग तो इनडायरेक्टली होता ही है. करेक्ट. तो तब भी अगर आई टेल एम कि यू हैव टू डू दिस थिंग्स, still it will be liable to GST. Barter to between two business, how is it charged? That's what example I gave you. Barter between two businesses. Okay. So when I supply printer, I will charge GST on that value. If I'm getting laptop, the other person who is giving me a laptop, he has to charge GST. सो सेल्स का एंट्री रहेगा, रिसिप्ट का एंट्री विल गेट ऑफसेट विथ माई सेल. सो इन द बुक्स यू शुड हैव अ कंट्रोल सेइंग दैट, ये आपके स्टॉक पे ऊपर आपको कंट्रोल होना चाहिए. गवर्नमेंट विल नॉट कम एंड हैव अ कंट्रोल ऑन बार्टर ट्रांजैक्शंस और एनी ट्रांजैक्शंस. आपको आपके सेल्स के ऊपर डिक्लेयर करके आपका रिटर्न्स फाइल करना है. ठीक है. So you should have control on your barter transactions. Now, if I don't do it, what will happen? Those are all secondary things. जो illegal चीजें हम उसकी बात नहीं कर रहे हैं, जो legally करना चाहिए. Barter, is it liable to GST? That is a question. Yes. Now, how do you show it? You will have to raise an invoice on a barter transaction and offset it against your receivables, against your purchase. That is how you will show it in your books of accounts. So GST can be paid on net basis to each other. नहीं, जीएसटी आपको आउटपुट पे ही करना है, वो नेट ऑफ नहीं होगा. वॉट एवर जीएसटी इज पेएबल ऑन योर सेल, दैट यू विल पे. वॉट एवर ही इज चार्जिंग यू, दैट क्रेडिट यू कैन ऑफसेट. जो इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट का नॉर्मल क्रेडिट ऑफसेट करते हैं, दैट यू कैन डू इट. नॉट दैट यू आर ऑन अ बार्टर यू विल नॉट पे जीएसटी, ऐसा नहीं होगा. ऑन अ बार्टर यू आर मेकिंग वन सेल, on that GST payable is appearing, that you will disclose as your GST payable. Is barter a composite supply? No, barter is not a composite supply. बार्टर इज एक्सचेंज. आप सप्लाई कर रहे हो, रिसीव हो रहा है. कॉम्पोजिट सप्लाई वो होता है जब आपके दो सप्लाई होते हैं, और दोनों सप्लाई में एक प्रिंसिपल सप्लाई होता है, एक एंसिलरी सप्लाई होता है. दैट इज अ कॉम्पोजिट सप्लाई. दिस इज नॉट अ कॉम्पोजिट सप्लाई, दिस इज एक्सचेंज ऑफ सप्लाईज. ओके. अनदर थिंग इज नो क्लेम बोनस. नो क्लेम बोनस मीन्स मैं इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसी लेता हूं गाड़ी के लिए. अब गाड़ी लेने के लिए मैं न्यू क्लेम बोनस क्लेम करता हूं जब मैंने इस साल के पॉलिसी पे कर दी है और कुछ भी क्लेम नहीं किया है, और नेक्स्ट ईयर पॉलिसी में से जो प्रीमियम मुझे पे करना है उसमें से नो क्लेम बोनस डिडक्शन करके डिडक्शन मिलता है मुझे अपने प्रीमियम से. सपोज 1,000 रुपये का प्रीमियम है, उसमें 50 रुपये का डिस्काउंट देती है इंश्योरेंस कंपनी. तो फिर ये इंश्योरेंस कंपनी के पास सब जीएसटी ऑफिसर गए, बोले भैया आप 50 रुपये दे रहे हो, उसके रिटर्न आपको क्या मिल रहा है? उनको कुछ नहीं मिल रहा है. नहीं, आपको कुछ तो मिल रहा है, इसीलिए आप डिस्काउंट दे रहे हो. तो आप दे रहे हो इसका मतलब आप कुछ ले रहे हो, तो फिर इसके ऊपर आपको जीएसटी पे करना पड़ेगा. तो ऑफिसर्स गए इंश्योरेंस के पास और बोले कि आपको नो क्लेम बोनस पे जीएसटी पे करना है. तब ये इंश्योरेंस कंपनीज गई जी सेंट्रल बोर्ड ऑफ इनडायरेक्ट टैक्सेस एंड कस्टम्स, बोली भैया आपके फील्ड फॉर्मेशन वाले हमको तंग कर रहे हैं और जीएसटी लगा रहे हैं नो क्लेम बोनस पे। लेकिन नो क्लेम बोनस तो हम सिर्फ डिस्काउंट दे रहे हैं, उसके अगेंस्ट हमको कुछ रिटर्न नहीं मिल रहा है, जीएसटी क्यों पे करें। तब सीबीआईसी ने यह सर्कुलर दिया है कि नो क्लेम बोनस ऑफ ईयर 1 इज डिडक्टेड फ्रॉम द इंश्योरेंस पेमेंट मेड इन ईयर 2, एंड नो क्लेम बोनस इज विल बी कंसिडर्ड एज अ कंसिडरेशन फॉर सप्लाई प्रोवाइडेड। क्या ये सप्लाई के लिए कंसिडर माना जाएगा? तब सीबीआईसी ने कहा नहीं, ये नो क्लेम बोनस जो है ये क्लेम नहीं करने के लिए कस्टमर को दिया गया है, लेकिन कस्टमर के ऊपर ऑब्लिगेशन नहीं है कि आप कुछ क्लेम नहीं करो। अगर आपकी गाड़ी में ठुक गई है, आपने गाड़ी का एक्सीडेंट कर दिया, तो फिर आप नो क्लेम आप क्लेम कीजिए। लेकिन आप अच्छी तरह से चला रहे हैं और आपका कुछ एक्सीडेंट नहीं हो रहा है, तो फिर हम डिस्काउंट देंगे। Correct? So this no claim bonus is like a discount. There is no supply which is involved in it. There is no GST on this no claim bonus. फूड कॉम्बो इज composite और मिक्स सप्लाई। फूड कॉम्बोज, जैसे आप ले रहे हो समोसा और साथ में रह रहे हो कोको कोला, तो गुड क्वेश्चन वेदर दिस इज अ कॉम्पोजिट सप्लाई और मिक्स सप्लाई। फूड कॉम्बो, आप समोसा अलग ले रहे हो और कोक भी अलग ले सकते हो, लेकिन कॉम्बो बना के दे दिया है। सो दिस इज अ आर्टिफिशियल, दिस इज नॉट अ नेचुरली बंडल्ड। अगर वो नेचुरली बंडल्ड होता है तो कॉम्पोजिट सप्लाई, दिस इज आर्टिफिशियली बंडल्ड। करेक्ट? एंड विच इज द प्रिंसिपल? आपको दोनों प्रिंसिपल ही लगेगा, देन इट्स अ एग्जाम्पल ऑफ अ मिक्स सप्लाई। सो फूड कॉम्बो इज एग्जाम्पल ऑफ मिक्स सप्लाई। वॉट एवर इज द हाइएस्ट रेट, जैसे भी फूड पे तो दोनों के ऊपर सेम रेट, लेकिन कोक होता है तो उसके ऊपर हायर रेट रखता है, तो फिर वो वॉट एवर इज द हायर रेट फॉर दीज टू, दैट विल अप्लाई इन ऑन द होल प्रोडक्ट। सो मिक्स सप्लाई पे ऊपर डिसएडवांटेज क्या है? वॉट एवर इज द हाइएस्ट रेट ऑफ दीज कॉम्बो प्रोडक्ट्स, वो रेट सबके ऊपर लगेगा। ठीक है? सो दैट फूड कॉम्बो इज एग्जाम्पल ऑफ मिक्स सप्लाई। करेक्ट, 28% प्लस एस एम कोला, तो फिर कोला के ऊपर जो रेट लगेगा वो दूसरे प्रोडक्ट के भी लगेगा, तो इसलिए आप देखेंगे जीएसटी के बाद ये कॉम्बोज वगैरह कम हो चुके हैं। ओके। तो एज वी हैड डिस्कस कि लास्ट में आपके क्वेश्चंस रहेंगे, सो वी हैव रीच्ड द लास्ट 15 मिनट्स, तो आपके क्वेश्चंस जो भी हो यू कैन आस्क, और इफ यू वांट टू टेक मी टू सम स्पेसिफिक टॉपिक अंडर सप्लाई आई कैन टेक इट देयर। रिलेटेड आर डिस्टिंक्ट पर्सन, दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, क्योंकि शेड्यूल 1 में बोलता है कि एनी सप्लाई बिटवीन रिलेटेड आर डिस्टिंक्ट पर्सन इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, that any transaction between related or distinct person without any consideration also is liable to GST। जैसे ये शेड्यूल 1 है, शेड्यूल 1 बोलता है एक्टिविटीज विदाउट कंसिडरेशन जिसके ऊपर जीएसटी लगेगा, परमानेंट ट्रांसफर और डिस्पोजल ऑफ बिजनेस असेट्स, ठीक है। देन सप्लाई विथ रिलेटेड पर्संस आर डिस्टिंक्ट पर्संस, जब भी आप कुछ सप्लाई करते हो विथ रिलेटेड पर्संस या डिस्टिंक्ट पर्संस, फिर जीएसटी लगेगा। इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? जब आप स्टॉक ट्रांसफर कर रहे हो, कंसिडरेशन नहीं ले रहे हो, फिर भी जीएसटी लगेगा। ठीक है, वो समझ गए। लेकिन ये डिस्टिंक्ट पर्सन्स क्या होता है? डिस्टिंक्ट पर्सन का होता है जब आप रजिस्ट्रेशन एक स्टेट में लेते हो एंड यू हैव एनी अदर ब्रांच आउटसाइड द स्टेट, वेदर दैट इज रजिस्टर्ड और अनरजिस्टर्ड, दो स्टेट में आप बिजनेस ऑपरेट कर रहे हो, तो फिर दैट पर्सन इज कॉल्ड एज अ डिस्टिंक्ट पर्सन। सेकेंड, अगर एक ही स्टेट में हो, आपके 10 ब्रांचेस है और 10 ब्रांचेस के अलग अलग रजिस्ट्रेशन ले रहे हो, देन दैट पर्सन डिफरेंट ऑल द रजिस्टर्ड यूनिट आर कॉल्ड एज डिस्टिंक्ट पर्सन। So then this 10 different branches are called as distinct person. Any kind of stock transfer which you are doing between this one registered entity to another registered entity within the state, or from one registered entity in a state to another state, is liable to GST because it is transfer and liable to GST. But one thing to be noted is any kind of a 10 ब्रांचेस यू हैव, इन सब के लिए आप एक रजिस्ट्रेशन ले सकते हो। द रजिस्ट्रेशन प्रोविजन में आप समझेंगे दैट यू हैव अ ऑप्शन टू टेक वन रजिस्ट्रेशन इन अ स्टेट फॉर हाउ मेनी अवर ब्रांचेस। तो आपके 10 या 15 ऑफिसेज है, 10 या 15 ब्रांचेस है, फॉर दैट यू हैव टेकन वन रजिस्ट्रेशन. इन दैट केस, फॉर ऑल ऑफ दीज registrations, if you take one registration, any stock transfer is not liable to GST. Clear? No claim bonus, explain कर दो. No claim bonus is when I do a insurance policy and नेक्स्ट ईयर के इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसी में कुछ प्रीमियम जो मेरे को 10,000 रुपये पे करने, उसमें मुझे 500 रुपये का नो क्लेम बोनस डिडक्शन मिल गया, क्योंकि मैंने लास्ट ईयर जो सेम पॉलिसी थी उसमें कुछ भी क्लेम नहीं किया. सो ऑन दैट basis I've got a discount of 500 rupees. So when I pay 9,500 rupees, that is liable to GST. On this 500 rupees, it is not a supply, no GST is payable. Why does stock transfer attract GST? Because in the earlier to GST law, whatever stock transfer used to happen, to claim that exemption, I had to give some statutory forms. उसे कहते थे फॉर्म एफ. जो फॉर्म एफ लेके मुझे सबमिट करना है, बहुत सारे दिक्कत आती थी. तो गवर्नमेंट सेड आपको कुछ फॉर्म देने की जरूरत नहीं है, आप जीएसटी पे कर दीजिए और आपका जो रिसीविंग ब्रांच है वो क्रेडिट क्लेम कर लेगा, दोनों को बेनिफिट रहेगा, कुछ लॉस नहीं होगा, तो आप वो कर दीजिए. सो दैट्स व्हाई ऑन स्टॉक ट्रांसफर जीएसटी इज लेवीड फॉर ईज ऑफ बिजनेस. किरण बाला, या प्लीज आस्क योर क्वेश्चन.
गुड इवनिंग सर. मेरा दो क्वेश्चन है सर. मिक्स सप्लाई केवल सिमिलर प्रोडक्ट की होती है या दे कैन बी डिफरेंट ऑल्सो?
इट कैन बी डिफरेंट ऑल्सो. सपोज आप जा रहे हो टूथपेस्ट खरीदने के लिए, टूथपेस्ट के साथ जनरली टूथब्रश रहता है, बट टूथपेस्ट के साथ अगर सोप भी दिया जाता है, दैट इज ऑल्सो एग्जाम्पल ऑफ अ मिक्स सप्लाई.
सर इसमें किसका जीएसटी सप्लाई रेट लगेगा?
जो भी हाईएस्ट है, सपोज टूथपेस्ट का 12% है और सोप का 5% है, तो हाईएस्ट रेट कितना है?
सोप का सर.
सोप का तो 5% है, टूथपेस्ट का 12% है.
हाँ, तो टूथपेस्ट का लगेगा
टूथपेस्ट का जो
12%.
टूथपेस्ट का जो 12% है, वो हाईएस्ट रेट पूरे प्रोडक्ट पे ऊपर लगेगा.
थैंक यू.
Okay, so it means that if we take one registration for all branches, then GST not liable, and if we take multiple registration, then GST liable. You're right, but understand that if you have multiple branches, तब आप GST registration एक नहीं ले सकते हो. If you have multiple branches in different states, then in each state you will have to take registration from where you are making a taxable supply. अगर एक ही स्टेट के अंदर मल्टीपल ब्रांचेस है, then what you're saying is right. If you have business in multiple states, then you will have to take multiple registration. आपको एक registration नहीं ले सकते हो. These slides will be uploaded on the BOS app. Like the last session is already uploaded. Please check whether you have received it. करंट ईयर प्रीमियम कम भरना पड़ेगा एनसीबी में, और जितना कम होगा उस पे लगेगा. नहीं, नेक्स्ट ईयर जो है आपको प्रीमियम के ऊपर डिस्काउंट मिलेगा, उसके ऊपर आपको जीएसटी पे करना पड़ेगा. There's one more session for supply? No, this is the session. But if you have any question on supply, because I've covered majorly the important aspects. So somebody were asking, what is a related person, a distinct person? I have a registered head office in Delhi and I have a registered branch office in West Bengal, which is in different state. Then they are called as distinct person. I have a registered restaurant in Maharashtra and unregistered liquor shop in Uttarakhand. Still they are establishment of distinct person, क्योंकि दूसरे स्टेट में हो गया है. वेदर दूसरे स्टेट वाला रजिस्टर्ड है या अनरजिस्टर्ड है, डजेंट मैटर. एक स्टेट से दूसरे स्टेट में अगर कुछ है एंटिटी, तो फिर इट विल बी ट्रीटेड एज अ एस्टैब्लिशमेंट ऑफ अ डिस्टिंक्ट पर्सन. सो क्या होगा, इफ आई हैव अ रजिस्टर्ड लखनऊ में फैक्ट्री है और दिल्ली में एक शोरूम है, कुछ भी स्टॉक ट्रांसफर होगा, इट इज ट्रीटेड एज अ डीम्ड सप्लाई. एंड से लखनऊ में फैक्ट्री है और कानपुर में शोरूम है, दोनों यूपी में ही है, करेक्ट. अगर दोनों के लिए मैं सिंगल रजिस्ट्रेशन ले रहा हूं तो ये स्टॉक ट्रांसफर के ऊपर इट इज नॉट अ सप्लाई। अगर मैं दूसरे एक ही सेम शोरूम का अलग अलग रजिस्ट्रेशन दे रहा हूं तब इट्स अ डीम सप्लाई। इफ आई डोंट टेक separate registration, I take only one registration, then it is not a supply. Mixed supply and composition, how to differentiate whether it is naturally bundled or artificially bundled. That is the important aspect, Nagesh. That examples I will give you when it is naturally bundled. Air conditioner with installation. When you go to a, that is first example. Second is when you go to a, in a airport, in a flight, food is, in some flights, it is provided along with the flight ticket. So that is also composite supply. And warranty, yeah, when you buy a car, warranty is also given along with it. That is also example of a naturally bundled composite supply. And samosa and coke. Samosa, if you eat, it's not necessary that you should drink coke. Correct? So it's a separate supply. That is example of a mixed supply. Correct? So these are the points to distinguish whether it's naturally bundled or artificially bundled. Food and airplane are artificial bundled, but when the airplane charges says that food is complementary, then it becomes a composite supply. Please provide an overview of Del Credar agent. Okay. What's a Del Credar agent? A normal agent is one who gets customers for you. Correct? He's an agent. Agent का काम itself वही है कि that you have to increase your sales, so he will get customers for you. But a Del Credar agent is a special agent who will give assurance that मैं आपको ऐसा कस्टमर लेके आऊंगा that आपका पेमेंट तो क्लियर होगा ही, बिकॉज एजेंट कैन गेट एनीबडी एंड यू विल सप्लाई टू हिम, बट वेदर ही विल पे यू और नो यू डोंट नो. So Del Credar agent is a extraordinary agent who will ensure that the customer pays to you. Okay, so how does he do it? He will do on two bases. That a short-term loan or interest is charged by the Del Credar agent is to be included in the value of supply of the principal when Del Credar agent is not the agent as per para 3. Matlab, he is not a agent as per para 3 of schedule 1. Matlab, he is, how the transaction happens is you will supply goods to the customer. Agency services which is provided by the Del Credar agent, you will pay him the agency charges. Now the loan service are given by the Del Credar agent to the buyer. Now the Del Credar agent charged extra commission. Now he has to fulfill that commitment saying that the customer will pay you. Now customer says I don't have any money. So then the Del Credar agent will give loan to the customer and tell the customer you pay to him वरना मेरे को फाइन लगेगा. So in this person charges the Del Credar agent give loans to the customer, then there is a separate agreement between the Del Credar agent and the customer. So whatever short-term loan and interest is charged by the Del Credar agent will not be included in the value of supply, because from the supplier's perspective आपने supply कर दिया है, जो भी interest charge कर रहा है वो Del Credar agent charge कर रहा है. ठीक है. सेकेंड एस्पेक्ट इज व्हेन डेल क्रेडार एजेंट इज एन एजेंट अंडर पार्ट 3, मतलब वो आपके बिहाफ पे काम कर रहा है. whatever transaction he's doing on your behalf. In that case, whatever interest you charge, that has to be included in the value of the taxable supply. Here how the flow happens: there is supply of goods by the principal to the Del Credar agent, and there is supply of goods by the Del Credar agent to the buyer. And the agency services again Del Credar karega. Now the loan service by the Del Credar agent is given to the buyer. In that case, this agency services के साथ जो interest है वो value of supply में include होगा. So the main point is whether he is an agent under para 3 or no is to be seen. When buyer took loan from Del Credar agent का agreement could be that he is giving loan to the customer or he is taking the obligation to pay to the principal. When he is acting independently, then he is giving a loan to the customer. If he is acting on behalf of the principal, then he himself is taking the obligation to pay to the principal. Yes, Del Creda agent, any agent will have contract with the buyer and seller, right? So the agent term itself is such that he connects the buyer and the seller. So he knows both the buyer and the seller. He may charge from the both, but generally he charges from the seller because buyer will not want to increase his cost. He generally charges from the seller itself. Invoice in his name is not in value of supply and exempt. Invoice is not in his name, then it will be in the name of the principal itself. This also is an important slide. I will share it with you. Go through this. When consideration is present, it is definitely taxable. When consideration is not present, only in this scenario of Schedule 1, import of service is taxable. In other cases, it is not taxable. If any concepts you go through and you want me to take up in supply, we can continue in the previous class. We can continue clarifications on supply, then go to the next chapter. Yeah, I will upload this PPT, but previous PPTs also has been uploaded. Please check. Invoice in his name is not in the value of supply, not exempt. It's not exempted as such. If invoice in his name, then it will not be included in the value of supply. That is what I'm trying to say. Revisionary classes are only on 2 days, Friday and Saturday. So these are like special weekend classes, Friday and Sunday, not Saturday, Sunday. Unable to see in download session. Okay, previous PPT not uploaded. I will talk to the Board of Studies team because I have already uploaded. I'll just check with them again. Kiran Mishra, what will be the supply in case Del Creda raises invoice in his name? If he raises invoice in name, it will be in the same thing itself. It will be a supply of that same good itself. If he raises in his name, he will be treating like he's buying from the principal and he's selling it. Interest is exempt? No, interest is not exempt. Interest will be part of the principal supply itself. The question here is whether the short-term loan charge is to be included in the value of supply by the principal or no. If it is included in the principal supply, then it will be included as the supply of the principal supply. If it is not included, then this is a loan service provided. Yes, it's a transaction money. You're right. If it is no, then it is exempted because transactions and money are exempted. You are right, Vikas. Then if it is not included, in this case, it will be a exempt supply. Correct. To decide principal agency is whether the invoice is issued by the agent to the customer in the name of principal. Yes, then it will be an agent in the terms of Schedule 1. No. If it is invoice is issued by the agent in the name of agent itself, then it will be an agent in terms of para 3 of schedule 1. Currency exchange service. Yes, currency exchange service, the commission what is charged or the charges for currency exchange, that is taxable. But if you give $100 and get something in money, so that's not a supply as such, but for doing that transaction, what extra charges levied, that is a taxable supply. We'll wait for 1 or 2 minutes for any more questions. Thank you very much, Priyanka. Good that these revisionary classes will help you, and all the best for your exams in terms of this chapter that you'll be able to grasp much better. Thank you, Om Krishnam. Very good. Only one group left. Very nice. Okay. Okay. Have a good weekend for the rest of the time which you have today, and enjoy. Let's start our studies again from the next Friday. In the meantime, study all your other subjects so that Friday and Sunday you're packed for GST sessions. Thank you very much. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.